everybody, welcome to Inside the Justice League. I'm Jason Hillhouse. With me this evening is Bruce Timm, Dan Reba, James Tucker, and Rich Fogel. We're going to get the inside scoop on what went into Justice League Season 1. Your questions, my questions, their questions. Discussions are going to happen starting now.
Working together, we saved the planet. And I believe that if we stayed together as a team, we would be a force that could truly work for the ideals of peace and justice.
How did you guys decide that, okay, after Batman Beyond, and you did Batman, Superman, Batman Beyond, and Justice League seemed to be kind of the next evolutionary step?
Job security.
Probably going all the way back to Batman, and then certainly after we had done the Superman show, we got that question a lot from the fans was, when are you going to do Justice League next? There was a lot of interest in doing the Justice League. Since time immemorial, people have just loved to have their heroes team up for some reason. I don't know why, but they do. And I'm on record as being kind of hesitant about doing it just because I knew how difficult the show it would be to do, and I was right.
Something that we couldn't have done any earlier because the technology wouldn't have been there for it.
It was a learning curve for us to figure out how to do bigger and better set pieces.
It was different in terms of the way we approached the stories. It was different in the way that we approached the characters, and all the things we had learned along the way, suddenly we had to up them 10 times. And staging action for Batman, or 1 or 2 characters, and suddenly you have 7, at least 5 at any given time. How are you going to come up with a story every week that is going to challenge that group?
Right.
Sure.
And it was tough.
And you've got a finite number of really mega villains in the DC Comics roster who can literally, realistically take on the Justice League.
One of the things that's hard about the Justice League as a group was that these are not characters, by and large, that were created to go together. And to find a way to mix that together so that they were a cohesive unit that worked together and that they didn't overlap each other too much in terms of powers, it was a real challenge.
My home Thanagar is a warlike world. There, one must strike first.
That 7th spot could have been Hawkman or the Atom or Aquaman or whoever else you want to name. Sure. And of all those candidates, we thought Hawkgirl was the most interesting, and I think
Again, throw another girl in the group, and that shakes it up a little bit, yeah, because, everybody can't be crushing on Wonder Woman.
That's right.
In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight.
The Green Lantern wasn't a hard decision to make, though, because of the fact that in the mythology, there are a whole bunch of Green Lanterns. And so we didn't feel like we needed to make a huge explanation of it. I think in the case of Justice League, we ignored a lot of that continuity.
For the first season, we'd made a deliberate decision to not have any of their supporting characters because we didn't have the time to play with them, and we wanted to really establish that the Justice League was its own show.
In order for the chemistry in our group to work, we really needed to initially jettison all of the supporting characters from the other things so that it forced the heroes to interact with each other.
Why do we have to ride in this rust bucket? What's wrong with your ring?
Lady, the galaxy's a big place. I need my Navicomputer to find Warworld.
He's got a point.
Great. Take his side.
I'm not taking his side. I'm just saying.
I'm wrong again.
You guys, for this show, I know, sat down and actually did kind of plot out and created more or less a Bible, right? Like in terms of you knew kind of the Hawkgirl situation going in.
We planned the Hawkgirl thing from day one, yeah.
Right.
In the Bible, because we knew we were going to be using the Bible for publicity purposes, we actually wrote a fake backstory for her.
Right.
It was a disinformation campaign on Hawkgirl.
We didn't have the whole betrayal story completely figured out yet, but we did know from early on that she was going to fall in love with Green Lantern, that they were going to have a romance, and that she was going to betray the League.
Everybody expected us to team Superman and Wonder Woman because that's the sort of more obvious way to go.
But why would we do that? Because Superman's going to be with Lois. I don't understand.
No, it's so not bizarre. A good choice.
Fans are so bizarre.
It's not a good choice.
That's what people think. Like the two strongest people get together. It's like the high school, the quarterback and the cheerleaders. Like that's what's going to.
So it was sort of like working against the grain that sort of helped make that spark.
Yeah.
And that idea actually came from Paul Levitz.
Paul Levitz at DC Comics. Yeah, he's the publisher of DC Comics.
How much of that is dictated, like here's the parameters, this is the version of Aquaman we need to do?
They're pretty good about letting us do what we want to do. They're
Right.
pretty open to different interpretations of their characters. They did not insist that we use the hook-handed, long-haired Aquaman. That was something our own initiative went to.
Yeah, I think I just doodled a sketch. Our version is slightly different than what they were doing because at the time they were doing basically Aquaman was King Arthur.
Right.
And we were thinking, He's a barbarian.
What's taking so long? I must return to Atlantis. Sit tight, Your Highness. We'll tell you when it's safe to go. You presume too much.
Whatever, if there's a chance to throw in a comic book reference, it's, you know, and get away with it and not looking too geeky. It's
And hopefully to do it in such a way that if you don't get the joke,
Right.
it
It still
doesn't take
plays.
you out of the show.
A good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And, you know, we would be making more work for ourselves if we went out of our way to ignore the things in the comic books.
Allow us to introduce ourselves. Justice Guild, roll call. Catman.
Black Siren.
Green Guardsman. Tom Turbine. The Streak.
Let's get this painful part out of the way. Everybody,
What part of this hasn't
goes
been
everybody.
painful?
Well,
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, the most painful part of this out of the way. Favorite episode, season 1.
It's easy for me.
See, look,
what's your favorite?
Look at Tucker. One.
Legends Part 1.
This can't be real.
Tell me about it. I almost busted a gut during that roll call routine.
It's not that. It's the Justice Guild. They're comic book characters.
The animation on that is particularly good, and I designed half the models for that show.
Almost all of the characters.
Yeah.
And it was a really audaciously comic booky show.
Can't you work any faster?
Maybe Enemy Below. I had an idea that the whole court intrigue story would be almost Shakespearean in the way that it played out, and the motives of the villains and things like that.
Let's see your identity papers now.
Sorry, but my identity's a secret. Chicks dig that whole man of mystery thing.
Well, they picked my two favorite ones, but really, actually, Savage Time in Part 2, I think, because I never really thought we'd be able to do a World War II story. It was kind of a forbidden subject. You just didn't deal with it, and we found a way to deal with it and do it in a fantasy way and get the Blackhawks in there.
Rhaegar meets his greatest foe, the man from Krypton.
Were there any that people just didn't respond
Oh,
to?
everybody
They-
hated Warworld.
Problem with Warworld all comes down to the end of it.
Absolutely.
At one time we had Superman kicking everybody's butt. You came in and said, we've seen Superman kick people's butt before, let's do something different.
Probably shouldn't have had Draga in the story if we really... Well, you know, here's another thing. I mean, that brings up a good point, too. Season 1, we got called on the carpet for making Superman a wimp.
Yeah.
And guilty as charged.
Sure, yeah.
We didn't know we were doing it. We were actually kind of using it as a kind of a dramatic crutch early on. It's like, oh, well, hey, if Superman can get taken down really, right away, well, then now this is a really bad threat, and now the rest of everybody else is all in trouble. We didn't realize it had become like a recurring gag until we started getting the internet comments and everybody's saying, well, wait a minute, why is Superman such a wimp now? And it's like, oh, you know what? There's a pattern.
This watchtower will act as an early warning system for detecting other threats of invasion from space.
And it also has a fully stocked kitchen. Ice mocha?
I always think of season 1 as kind of our shakedown cruise. We were working really hard, and it was a hard show to do. But on the other hand, I think just the enormity of the project was kind of daunting, and we kind of let it cow us a little bit. We kind of let it intimidate us to the point where we made mistakes based on fear.
Well, and also, this was the first show where I think we let the style of the show take a back seat.
That was a conscious decision, which I think was a mistake in
And it
retrospect.
was, yeah, and we eventually corrected that. And we thought this was a way of making it more real world.
Because of the more superheroic things that were happening in the show, we felt that we should ground the show in a little bit more of a believable reality.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. As always, it's been a real treat for me. Thank you for watching at home. That's it this time for Inside the Justice League.